Welcome. Thank you for joining us for those darn DPAs. The snark is on purpose. We know there are a lot of objections and misperceptions out there about down payment assistance. Today's webinar is designed to address those, but also to acknowledge them. Some of them are real, but some of them are perceived objections or misunderstandings about down payment resource. So we will acknowledge them, and we're gonna combat some of them. My name is Sean Moss with Down Payment Resource. We also have several members of our DPR team in the background. They will be answering questions as we go. It's a lot easier for us to manage that if you use the Zoom Q&A feature, and it's easier to manage than trying to track the chat. So what we want to talk about today is a brief overview of the state of down payment assistance, what's going on with down payment assistance programs. And then we're going to talk about some of the perceptions and misperceptions about down payment assistance programs. The meat of the event today, though, is to acknowledge and address the top 5 obstacles or objections to DPA that we hear from the field, from your peers. And we're going to, in many cases, debunk those with feedback, again, from your peers. So a lot of the content really is from your fellow agents and loan officers that are working with DPAs and working with first-time home buyers. We'll round this out with some tools to help you along the way and next steps and best practices with regard to down payment assistance. A little bit about us. We are a national database of all of the more than 2,300 homebuyer assistance programs around the country. We'll break those down and look at what types of help is out there in just a moment. We also integrate into MLSs and listing search websites. So if you're a member of one of our MLSs, you have a full suite of down payment resource tools at your disposal to give you access to DPA information for eligible listings, but also for your clients as they express interest in home ownership and then ultimately with down payment assistance programs. We also have a Down Payment Connect tool for agents and loan officers. Again, if you're a member of one of our MLS partners, you actually already have Down Payment Connect for free as part of that partnership. We'll show you that list of MLS partners later. We also work with mortgage lenders, and we have a suite of tools to help make down payment assistance easier for mortgage lenders. So we're serving both the real estate and the mortgage finance industries. Our goal is to help you connect buyers with the down payment help they need. That is ultimately what we are here to do, to help you accomplish. So let's talk about the current state of down payment assistance, or more broadly, homebuyer assistance programs. So every quarter, we take a snapshot of all of the homebuyer assistance programs that are out there. Most recently, that was for Q2. And in the next few weeks, we'll be doing a snapshot for third quarter. But about 75% of all of these homebuyer assistance programs are some form of down payment or closing cost assistance. And that breaks down further to deferred programs, forgivable programs, those that are grants versus a loan. So we'll talk about that in just a second. But we also track and monitor all of the affordable first mortgage loans that typically come from your state or local housing finance agencies. Those can offer below market interest rates, reduced mortgage insurance costs, and higher LTV financing. We also track and monitor all of the mortgage credit certificates or tax credits available across the country. And again, those are typically from your state housing finance agency and some local housing finance agencies. There are also some other programs that might include matched savings programs, housing choice vouchers, and so forth. We do track and monitor those as well. However, when we say homebuyer assistance or down payment assistance, for the most part, we're talking about the left side here, the vast majority of these homebuyer programs that offer down payment or closing cost help. And increasingly, those programs allow for other uses beyond just down payment and closing costs. We'll take a look at that in a second as well. But just so we're clear, we have an entire webinar dedicated to breaking all this down in more detail. But that's not the focus today. Today is the objections and misperceptions and overcoming them. But just so you know, of all of the down payment assistance programs out there, 87% of them are deferred. That is by far the most common type of of down payment assistance is deferred payment DPA loans. 58% of down payment assistance programs are forgivable, meaning it's not a grant at closing, but the down payment assistance funds are forgiven incrementally over time or at some period in the future. And then many programs combine both of those benefits. There are some grants out there which are, basically true gifts at closing. That's not as common or prevalent as down payment assistance loans, but there are most certainly some grants. And then, of course, there are programs that require immediate repayment. So just like the first mortgage, you close and you have a payment on the down payment assistance just as you do on the first mortgage. So there are many types of down payment assistance programs. That's a foundation that is sufficient for us to go through the rest of this today. And again, we have an entire webinar dedicated to essentially breaking this slide down and talking about all the nuances, the commonalities, the universal requirements, and the differences. But that's a good foundation for today. Now, who offers these programs? Every state has a state housing finance agency. There are a few states that have more than one statewide agency that offers homebuyer assistance. There are municipalities all over the country that offer some form of homebuyer assistance. Those are going to be your cities and counties around the country. Employers might offer down payment assistance to recruit or to retain talent. And there are housing-related nonprofits all over the country that, in addition to other services like maybe housing counseling, homebuyer education, and so forth, that also offer down payment assistance or some form of homebuyer help. But there are other providers. There's the Federal Home Loan Bank Network. There are community development financial institutions. There are local housing authorities. There are community land trusts and more. There are over 1,300 housing-related agencies across the country that are offering homebuyer assistance programs. So DPA is everywhere. There is literally no market or no county in the country that doesn't have at least some down payment assistance options because, as we just mentioned, every state has a state housing finance agency. So at the very least, your state has programs available statewide, but there are many, many hundreds of local DPAs, if you will, from cities, counties, nonprofits, and so forth. So this graph on the right shows which states have the most programs, but every state has at least dozens, if not more. And again, there's no market in the country where there isn't some form of homebuyer assistance available from at least the state agency, if not many local entities as well. Now, as far as trends go, we have seen demand for down payment assistance skyrocket in the last couple of years. And quite frankly, it's almost on an exponential scale. We have seen down payment assistance providers try to keep pace with that demand by continuing to enhance their programs to keep the door open to homeownership for more prospective homebuyers. Those enhancements include more assistance dollars. We're seeing them offer more money and down payment help, higher income and higher purchase price limits to keep pace with price appreciation and increases in income, allowing unique use cases for those down payment assistance funds beyond just down payment or closing costs to include things like interest rate buy downs or offsetting mortgage insurance costs. So imagine using a down payment assistance program not only to increase the down payment of that buyer, but also to potentially fund something like an interest rate buy down. We're seeing more and more of that. We're also seeing more DPA providers allow for the purchase of other types of properties, including increasingly manufactured homes and also 2 to 4 unit properties. So duplexes, triplexes, quadplexes. For the latter, as long as the owner occupies or the buyer occupies one of those units as their primary residence. But that's expanding the inventory selection for which DPA programs can be utilized. We'll come back to that when we talk about one of the top 5 obstacles. Now, we also are seeing new programs continue to launch in markets all over the country for several quarters running, dating back to 2021. We have seen a quarterly increase in the number of homebuyer assistance programs available nationwide. So quarter over quarter increases dating back about a year and a half. And currently about 83% of all programs are funded and active, and that's a normal number. There are some seasonal programs, but most of your state agencies, most of their programs are basically perpetually funded. So, the days of the bond program running out of money and things like that, those are gone. But there are some local seasonal programs that get let's say a HUD allocation every year to fund their down payment program. Sure, there are some of those, and we track and monitor all of these details, including funding status for all of these programs. So you don't have to worry about that. That's part and parcel of our mission, is to simplify DPAs for you so you can focus on marketing and bringing in new buyers. Now, kind of transitioning here are some of the perceptions that we hear about DPA. So we just kind of looked at some of the benefits of what DPA providers are doing to keep the market moving, to keep buyers down a path toward home ownership. But then we think about some of the perceptions about down payment assistance that are going to lead us to breaking down some of the biggest obstacles that we hear. We hear all the time that, especially from lenders, they love the concept, but they struggle with the logistics and the economics of down payment assistance. And when we break that down, we hear things like down payment assistance programs add costs. There's no margin. It's hard to make money. Down payment assistance add post-closing complexity and risk. There are concerns or questions about training and adoption, especially among loan officers, but getting the subject matter experts in place, like processors and underwriters. There are concerns, and more rampant in the real estate community, about the potential impact on approval timelines and closing timelines. And then there are concerns, often unfounded, about the availability or continuity of funding for these programs. So I put all this out there as we transition here to talking about and breaking down some of the biggest barriers or obstacles, real or perceived, that we're going to get into in a moment. But remember, all of these DPA providers are going out of their way to be more aggressive and flexible in offering their down payment assistance. We're seeing more programs. We're seeing more funding for them. We're seeing more agencies offer these programs. Down payment assistance is not going away. Down payment assistance is a hot topic. There's plenty of attention, plenty of options, plenty of programs out there. So with that in mind, let's get into these obstacles and start rethinking down payment assistance. So we're going to give you millions of reasons to rethink all this. But before we do that, let's acknowledge the top 5 obstacles that we hear about DPAs. Number 1, inventory is limited and unaffordable. That is indeed true. So there's no misperception there. However, there are solutions that we need to identify to overcome that obstacle. Number 2, confusion about down payment requirements. There's definitely confusion, especially among first-time homebuyers, about how much they have to have as a down payment. There's certainly a lack of awareness of down payment assistance programs as well. Number 3, sellers refuse contracts, or there's an aversion to a contract offer that indicates down payment assistance is being used, or indicates even the presence of an FHA loan versus conventional, right? So that's a problem, because that's really hampering the ability of a DPA buyer or a first-time home buyer to make competitive offers and win the bids on the properties that they qualify to purchase. But there are things we can do to, again, mitigate that obstacle. There are concerns or misperceptions that down payment assistance will extend the transaction. In our experience, and based on feedback from your peers, that is largely not true. That is a largely unfounded misperception about DPAs, and we're going to discuss that. And then lastly, the most common question we get from real estate agents, and this goes back years, but it's been more and more rampant in the last couple of years, is how can I find a loan officer that can help me with down payment assistance? So if there are loan officers listening in today on this webinar, just know that that's the most common question we get from agents, and that should be your cue to get out in the community and to establish and build and grow more creative, more innovative, more collaborative partnerships with agents. And agents, we're going to talk about some things that you can do to find those loan officers as well. So that'll be our 5th obstacle, is the lack of productive, fruitful, innovative agent loan officer partnerships and the impact that has on potential buyers. So those are the top 5 obstacles we're going to break down. Let's move into number 1. And as we go here, remember these obstacles are things that we hear all the time in training, in through our support desk, through our customers, through our MLS partners and their members, from lenders and so forth. But the solutions, so we're basically going to say what's the problem, and then we're going to say what's the solution for each of these. The solutions are not things that we made up. The solutions have come from your peers. They've come from interviews with agents and loan officers around the country. They've come from case studies that we've done. They've come from stories that have been brought to us by agents and loan officers who really do know down payment assistance, who do a lot of these loans, who are good at them, and who have broken through the clutter, cut through the red tape and figured out how to do these right and do them the best way. So bearing that in mind, number one, inventory is limited and unaffordable. This problem is real. There's no misperception here. We have historically low inventory. Days on market keep shrinking. There is enormous demand for properties, especially in the affordable price bands in any market. There's obviously limited supply. Prices are steady, if not increasing, in most markets. It's been an interesting year or so if we all look back a year, but for the most part, prices have either maintained year over year, most months, and or are increasing in a lot of markets. All of that means buyers are struggling to compete, especially first-time home buyers, especially buyers looking for affordable, median-priced or lower homes in their respective markets, and especially for buyers that want or need or are utilizing a down payment assistance program in order to execute on that purchase. So, given the problem, as I said, let's look at solutions for each one of these. And again, these come from your peers. Consider alternative inventory sources. So we mentioned a few minutes ago that more and more of these programs are allowing for the purchase of manufactured homes and 2 to 4 unit properties with their down payment assistance funds, not just single family detached or condo or townhome, right? We also see allowances for co-ops, for example, in New York. But there are municipalities or local nonprofits that may have properties that they've purchased that were blighted or vacant land that they've acquired and that they're building affordable homes on. There are community land trusts. That land trust model has been increasingly popular the last few years. And there are also homes that are maybe in need of some TLC that could, present an option for a buyer not to buy a dump, right? We're not talking about a hole in the roof and missing windows and no appliances, things like that. It still has to be good enough to get a mortgage on, quite frankly, and pass inspection and appraisal. But what we're talking about are maybe those homes that don't get sold the week they get listed, right? Maybe they've lingered for 2-3 weeks because they need a little TLC. But if somebody is handy enough or has the extra discretionary funds to maybe buy that home and do a little of that work in order to move into that house down the road, then that can be a viable option as well. Then, of course, there are coming soon properties. One thing agents that we hear from some of your peers is connect with the agents that are listing those affordable properties. Get to know them so that when they have affordable inventory that's coming down the pike, you're aware of it and you can start to notify your clients who are in that price band looking to purchase a home, and you've got a stream of properties that you're out in front of. So all of those can be alternative inventory sources beyond just what we would probably all consider the standard single family detached, condo, and townhome. But in addition to alternative inventory sources, counsel buyers on what the process is going to be like. We've still got this bidding war environment. We're still in a multiple bid environment, prices being bid up and so forth. Maybe not as bad as that was, a year and a half, 2 years ago. But it's still there, right? There's still a lot of competition for limited inventory. Buyers need to know what that competition looks like. Agents, let your buyers know what is it that's most attractive to sellers these days. If you're asking them to pay a lot in closing costs, you're probably not going to look that good versus somebody, or look that attractive as somebody who's putting down 20% and doesn't want closing costs from the seller. So remember, a down payment assistance program can also often help cover closing costs. Are those programs being utilized to their fullest effect? And then Of course, explore down payment assistance options for that and many other reasons, but also those mortgage credit certificates. If you've got mortgage credit certificates available in your market, those are life of loan tax credits. They're good every year for the life of the loan. That's a tax credit for your buyer that they get to take advantage of when they file their taxes, that allows for some extra tax relief related to the mortgage interest paid. But also, one of the benefits can be some of those mortgage credit certificate providers, if you have one in your state, they will take the value of that tax credit and annualize it to increase qualifying income. That can impact ratios. And then you have affordable first mortgage options from a lot of your state agencies that can offer some of the benefits we talked about earlier, further bringing down ratios and opening the door to affordability. So explore all of these options. We've captured this data and we maintain this data about all of these programs. And we're going to talk about how you can access all of this in various ways. But there's a lot of help out there. There are a lot of opportunities for you to create new buyers out of some of those folks that are on the fence thinking, I've got the income, I've got the credit, but I just don't think I have enough saved up. There are solutions out there. But I think ultimately this ends, and this came from an agent in Houston, this ends with the idea of calculated patience. Narrow down the buyer's list of must-haves. What is it that you must have now versus what are the things you would like to have? Because in a super competitive environment like this, they're going to have to maybe make some sacrifices, and they need to be prepared for that up front, especially a first-time home buyer. But that's going to position them to be able to strike with an offer when that right property hits the market and they're going to be ready to go. So hopefully that helps address some concerns about inventory, limited inventory, and the lack of affordable inventory. There are solutions out there, and that's what we aim to get at today. So let's move on to obstacle number 2, confusion about down payment requirements. What's the problem here? Problem is, according to a survey we did, or a survey the Urban Institute did in their recent study called Barriers to Accessing Home Ownership, they surveyed aspiring buyers, renters, millennial renters at the time, and 65% of them, when asked how much they thought they needed as a down payment, said they thought they had to have 15 or 20% down. That's a vast majority of renters who are interested in buying a home that still somehow think they have to have a 20% down payment, a 15% down payment. That's a pretty staggering misperception, because all of us on this webinar, we know that there are conventional 3 down, 5% down options, the FHA 3.5% down, qualified veterans 0 down, USDA loans for rural buyers buying a qualified rural property 0 down. But that's not the problem. Problem is the buyer doesn't know that. So often, many of them will just give up. They sideline themselves and they just stop looking. They stop reacting to your marketing. They no longer react to your emails. They don't look at the listings you send. They don't answer the phone when you call, because they've given up based on this misperception of the down payment that's required of them. In addition to that, part of that same study asked, were they familiar with low down payment programs? That means the mortgages we just rattled off, right? 3% down, 5% down conventional, 3.5% down FHA. More than 3/4 of those survey respondents, who again were millennial renters at the time, more than 3/4 of them had little or no familiarity with those low down payment, what we would think of as standard mortgage options. So they don't know that there are low down payment mortgage options out there, and they don't know that there's down payment assistance out there, and they think they have to have 20% down. No wonder so many aspiring buyers don't react to your marketing and give up on their home search, because those misperceptions come together in an almost impossible scenario for way too many of them. So we have to address that magic myth of 20%. And that's where we're going to start talking about the solutions to this issue. When it comes to confusion, especially among consumers about down payment requirements, we have to combat this 20% down notion. We have another webinar where we talk about the Down Payment Connect tool, and it's really marketing to first-time home buyers around the topic of down payment assistance as a way to educate and start conversations. One of our primary recommendations is immediately dispel the 20% myth. in all of your marketing going out to first-time home buyers, immediately dispel the myth that you have to have 20% down. Start the conversation with that. And then so many of them who are suffering from that misperception and sidelining themselves will think, oh, well, you know what? Maybe I should have this conversation. I didn't know that. I thought I had to have, $70,000. Maybe I could do it with 3,500 or, whatever the numbers are in your market. But start with that, combat that notion, but do it overtly, do it candidly in your marketing, on your social media posts, in flyers, in first-time homebuyer classes you teach, whatever you're doing, start by dispelling that myth. And then, of course, get outside your bubble. Educate yourself about the down payment programs in your market that are available to your prospective clients. Whether you're a real estate agent or a loan officer, if you're looking for solutions to create more buyers, to generate more conversations today, there aren't many better options than down payment assistance. Now, we've been doing this for 15 years, so obviously we believe in that. But at the same time, look at the market. I mean, as a loan officer, where are you gaining competitive advantage? Are you a non-QM expert? Are you a down payment assistance expert? For real estate agents, where are you gaining competitive advantage? Are you a relo expert? Are you a DPA expert? There are a few different ways that you can gain some domain expertise, right? And carve out a new niche for yourself. DPA is one of those. Get outside your bubble, but you have to be educated when you do it, and you have to be aligned with the right partners. We're going to get to the partnership piece of that. Talk about down payment assistance programs with your clients. We already know that they have misperceptions about required down payments, but tell stories about down payment assistance programs in your market to your prospective buyers and borrowers. Tell the story of past clients. How were you able to help the last client that you helped with the down payment assistance program? How much money did they get? What kind of difference did that make in their lives financially, or even just, emotionally, educationally, familially? So educate not just yourself, but start to educate your audience, your prospective buyers and borrowers about down payment assistance. However, let's just be candid. If that's not something you're interested in, stay in your lane. You can consult with your broker, your peers, other loan officers, lean on them, especially loan officers. Real estate agents, lean on your LOs for DPA expertise. And we'll talk more about that in the partnership section. But you also have tools that you can rely on as well. Downpaymentresource.com. That's our website. You can go there, do a search for programs. There are local DPA providers and state housing finance agencies that you can rely on. And an important part of the relationship building and partnership building process is and should be a working relationship with the providers of these down payment assistance programs. It's their program. They're expert at it. And they want real estate agents and loan officers to partner with, but you've got to go build that relationship. And then, of course, go attend, if not even teach, a first-time homebuyer class or even a homebuyer education course. Those are often required of the buyer in order to access down payment assistance. However, there's some really cool content in those courses, and it would be cool for you to attend one of those, especially real estate agents, to hear what's being taught to aspiring buyers about the home buying journey, but also about long-term successful home ownership, and incorporate that information into your marketing. So lots of ways to address those DPA or down payment requirement misperceptions among consumers, but it requires some proactive marketing and expertise on your behalf. So moving on to number 3. For several years now, we've heard more and more about sellers who balk at a contract offer that includes or hints at down payment assistance, or they'll just outright refuse to accept one. So what's the problem? Part of it is the sellers misunderstand down payment assistance. We think a bigger part of it, and the more likely culprit, is that the listing agent representing the seller misunderstands DPAs or has a sour attitude or a bad past experience that sours the current attitude about down payment assistance. We don't think it's necessarily the seller that knows much about DPA, and certainly is not the one saying, oh, I shouldn't accept that. We think it's more likely that listing agents are associating down payment assistance programs with a lack of certainty, when certainty is what they're looking for in an offer. And then there are fears that there will be delays in the closing because of the presence of a down payment assistance program. That's actually the next obstacle we're going to address, so I won't harp on that too much right now. But I think part of the problem here too is that contract offers don't leverage all of the benefits of a down payment assistance appropriately, and don't necessarily frame them in the offer as a value add. And then, of course, there are the misperceptions that a DPA borrower is a less qualified borrower, or a buyer using down payment assistance is less qualified than a buyer putting 10% down and getting a conventional loan. Loan officers who are savvy with down payment assistance will tell you, if I qualified a buyer, I qualified the buyer. The product that they used was just a means to the qualification, but they are qualified. So with that in mind, what are some of the things that we can do to combat this aversion to down payment assistance among sellers and the listing agents representing them? First of all, agents and loan officers, leverage your reputation as DPA experts. If we've got agents on the webinar here that consider themselves to be relatively expert as down payment or with down payment assistance, maybe even chime in the chat. Like, what do you say to sellers who balk at those offers for a DPA client? And loan officers, one of the things we've been hearing more and more from loan officers over the last 2 years is they will get on the phone, the loan officer will get on the phone, call the listing agent, call the seller, and tell them straight out, I do these DPA programs all the time. You signed a contract for close in 30 days. We're closing in 25. That's my normal timeline. Doesn't matter if they're putting 20% down or using a DPA. I know how to do these things. I close them. You've got certainty. Worry not. So loan officers, don't be afraid to get on the phone, and agents, don't be afraid to leverage the expertise of your loan officers to get on the phone and mitigate those concerns amongst sellers that are balking at an offer like this. And then, of course, leverage the full value of one of these DPA programs. So going back to one of the earlier slides where we were kind of breaking down the different kinds of down payment assistance, we're using the term DPA broadly as if it only covers down payment, right? But many of them also allow the buyer to cover closing costs with that down payment assistance money. That means if you can use some of it for the down payment and a significant portion of it to cover closing costs, you don't have to ask the seller to cover any of those closing costs, thus leading to more net proceeds for the seller and establishing that offer as a more competitive offer, more attractive offer for that seller. Additionally, so we also have mentioned that sometimes the seller is balking at even the presence of FHA financing, right? Just the hint that financing is FHA versus conventional. Again, associating a lack of certainty or a buyer being less qualified because they're financing with FHA. Here's an avenue. Just think of this for a moment. Imagine you've got a buyer that's got, let's say, 2% saved up. They're trying to get to that 3.5% hump for FHA. Well, what if they get a down payment assistance program that offers $15,000 and that gets them up to, let's say, 4%? That's 4% down, and maybe they still have money left over for closing costs. Or maybe they get a little bit more, or they use a down payment assistance program that offers the assistance as a percent of price, for example. So let's say they get a DPA that offers 4% of the purchase price and the buyer's got a little bit more money and they can get to 5% down. Now the down payment assistance program, if the loan officer and agent are working together appropriately, has just opened the door to conventional financing options. And then you have a completely different offer yet again. You're not necessarily asking for closing costs. You're presenting conventional financing. So, aside from the fact that we think a qualified borrower or buyer is a qualified buyer, the product is just the means to get to qualification. Here are some ways to more directly overcome or combat that aversion among sellers. All right. So, and then related to the perceived lack of certainty, provide assurance the deal will get done. And that's done by understanding the DPA requirements, timelines, and expectations. So, they have to go take their home buyer education class. Yes, make sure that gets done up front. Don't let that be a delay a week before closing, right? Do that the day they're going to use a down payment assistance program, and prevent other avoidable delays. Yes, some small few programs may require that the DPA provider has 24 or 48 hours to review the application. That makes sense. That's fair. And that's not even every DPA, right? But just understand those requirements and those timelines and make sure that that's all accounted for. The loan officer, again, will help set those expectations and commit to appropriate timelines. And I'll add this too. Don't disclose more than you have to about financing. Now, disclaimer here, you're all in different states. We've got people from all over the country on this webinar. You know your state contract laws, you know your state contract forms, but you don't have to disclose more than what's required. So there's no need for you to get into the details of DPAs and financing if you're not required to do so. Opening the door then to those concerns from a seller. And then I'll end with what I've already said several times. Clarify, especially to a seller, that look, this is a qualified buyer. Again, the product, the mortgage that we used to qualify them was just a means to an end. If it's a DPA and an FHA loan, they're still a qualified buyer. They're just a qualified buyer with an FHA loan using down payment assistance. Qualified just the same as if they were a conventional buyer. I'm sure some of you may disagree, but broadly speaking, that's our view. If you're qualified, you're qualified. If you're not qualified, you're not, and you got to go get qualified somehow, right? That might take time. That might take homeownership counseling, credit improvement, so forth. But if you're qualified, you're qualified. All right, number 4, down payment assistance programs extend the transaction. We hear this time and time again, and we've heard it for years. This isn't new. I think it is largely unfounded, and that's what we hear from loan officers who do a lot of these down payment assistance programs. I mean, as recently as this week, I've interviewed a loan officer who does a lot of these DPAs, and in California is closing DPA transactions in 15 days. That's 15. So here's the problem. Anything can cause a delay, not just a down payment assistance program. When a DPA is there, it is almost universally blamed for any delay. Oh, well, it was a DPA transaction. Of course it was delayed, right? Well, maybe cash to close was not fully investigated up front. And turns out that buyer did not actually have enough cash to close, and that could have been identified or bubbled up earlier. Or they had to update their bank statements because they've been trying to bid on properties and 2, 3, 4 months go by, and suddenly you got to update your bank statements, and oopsie, we've got less money in the bank now. So now we have to look at a DPA. Point is, when you bring the down payment assistance program into the transaction sometime after when you start the mortgage application, then you're starting part 2 later than you started part 1, and they should run in parallel. The mortgage and the DPA applications should run in parallel from the get-go. Or we already mentioned this a few minutes ago, home buyer education. We're doing this down payment assistance loan. We're under contract. We've got the qualification, the mortgage qualification in place. And then we're closing in a week, and oopsie, we forgot that we have to go get this home buyer education class done. That's not the fault of the DPA. Everybody knew up front that you had to take the class, right? But if it didn't get done, agents, loan officers, that's on you. We've got to make sure that the stuff we know needs to get done gets done early. There's no reason for a home buyer education class to be a delay. Lastly, miscommunication and lack of communication among the parties involved. So I just mentioned a minute ago, loan officers, get on the phone, call the seller's agent, give them the certainty they're looking for, let them know that you know what you're doing with DPAs, but also let them know about the timelines and the expectations of all parties. So I'm getting into solutions. So let's transition here to solutions. So regarding this misperception that down payment assistance programs just universally are stagnant and extend the transaction, that's not true. But here's what we can do to combat that misperception. Know the DPA you're using, set proper expectations. That's for timeline, application process, any like income or application review that the DPA provider has to do. Do the home buyer education class early. Those certificates of completion from those classes are typically good for a year. You have a year to use that home buyer education class completion in order to go access down payment assistance. So again, there's no reason to wait. As soon as you get them into mortgage pre-qual, then get them into the home buyer ed class. They're going to learn a lot and be a better client for you, first and foremost. But they're also going to get that requirement out of the way early, so it is not a delay. And then make sure appraisal, inspection, insurance, everything else is worked out. Title, make sure that's all worked out. Those things commonly cause delays too. So let's make sure everything's worked out, including DPA requirements, so that the DPA doesn't get blamed when something else goes afoul. And then agents, work with loan officers who know DPA well and who close on time. They essentially meet 3 requirements. Agents, you're looking for LOs that offer down payment assistance, that are good at down payment assistance, and that want that business from you. They want to partner with you to earn that business, which quite frankly, most loan officers these days ought to be doing. All right, so the last problem, the last obstacle, last misperception that we hear about all the time is lack of agent LO partnerships, or lack of the right kinds of them. So what's the problem? I already mentioned this. Agents have a hard time finding loan officers that offer DPA, that want that business, and they're good at down payment assistance. And again, the most common question we get from real estate agents in any of our training is, how do I find a loan officer who can help me with down payment assistance? We're getting up to that, so we're going to answer that question. Loan officers, you're not promoting your DPA expertise. You're not highlighting DPA program offerings in your marketing. You're not active in your communities in ways that are reaching agents who need that help, or buyers who might qualify. Those are the problems. What are the solutions? I'm going to break this down: agent first and then loan officer. Agents, talk to your loan officer partners about their DPA offerings. Maybe your current LO partners do offer these programs and it just hadn't come up. So definitely talk to the loan officers you already work with. Ask your broker, ask your fellow agents for recommendations. Do they have a loan officer that they work with that does DPA and does it well? Educate yourself about a few of the DPAs in your market. You don't need to know about 2,000 or 100 or even 10 different down payment programs. Just get to know 1 or 2 of the best programs in your market. Attend a homebuyer education class. Learn what content is being taught to consumers there, and seek out LO partnerships to test their knowledge. Court loan officers that specifically teach those homebuyer education classes or first-time homebuyer seminars, DPA seminars. Those are the ones that are more likely to want that business, have a strategy in place, and be good at DPA. And then talk to the DPA providers. We mentioned this already as well. A lot of the state housing finance agencies, they have a lot of participating lenders, but they also, many of them, publish a list of their top producing loan officers. Those are great places to start. Those are great people to start with. They do a lot of volume. They're good at them because they're top producing LOs for that DPA provider or for your state agency. That's a great place to go find a lender partner. Also, agents, I mentioned this earlier too. Get to know fellow real estate agents that are listing affordable properties, that are listing inventory that your DPA type of buyer could buy, that first-time home buyers might be looking at, median priced homes. Who's listing them? And get to know them so you can get out in front of that inventory as it starts to hit the market. Maybe they've got a mailing list, but either way, stay in contact and build those relationships as well. Loan officers, I'll say it one more time. By far, the most common question we get from agents is, how do you find loan officers that do DPA? So agents, we just pointed you to the DPA provider. Ask them. We pointed you to your current loan officer partners. Ask them. But loan officers, for those of you who are on this call and are LOs, how are you connecting with the agents who have that problem and need your assistance? Become a DPA subject matter expert. Attend DPA providers training classes. So go to your state agency, the city, the county, the local nonprofit, get their training on their own DPA programs. Incorporate that information into your marketing content. Let people know that you offer these programs. Loan officers, work with your product development team. Let them know what products and programs you need, or get their assistance to help give you some more expertise or more confidence in those particular programs. Host or train seminars, or host training or other seminars with your DPA providers. they're all looking for opportunities to spread the word about their programs. And they typically love to do that through loan officers and savvy real estate agents who know those programs well. These can be great networking opportunities and also great referral sources. And then get more active in your community, unions, employers, faith-based organizations. How are you getting out into the community and spreading the word that you offer these programs? There's a path to home ownership. There's support for down payment obstacles, and that you are the one that can create that avenue for more buyers. Leverage social media. Be online when agents are working. Be available when agents are working, but also leverage social media to spread the word about your expertise. And lastly, I'll say loan officers, make sure you have a strategy for bringing new first-time home buyers into the fold, but also the agents. Make sure you've got an agent partnership strategy. Here's what I offer to you. Here's how this works. Here's how this DPA program works. Here's how these transactions are the same or different from others. Here's what you need to know when your clients come in the door, and here's what I'm going to do for you. So have that intake strategy, not just for the borrower, but also for the agent that you're working with, to make sure everyone knows what to do when a down payment assistance program is involved and what the benefits of those programs might be. So to recap, the top five the solutions to the top 5 obstacles. Broadly speaking, explore creative inventory alternatives. Also, combat that 20% down payment misperception as step 1 in your marketing. Start with that, lead with that. You don't have to have 20% down. Leverage the value of a DPA. Can they cover closing costs? Do they allow for interest rate buy downs? Can you offset MI costs? What are the full values and advantages of the DPAs in your market, and leverage those, especially in contract offers. Set buyer expectations and prepare early. Everybody needs to know the timeline, any nuances about the DPA. Make sure everyone's on the same page so that there are no delays. We can avoid most of the delays that come out of a DPA. And then lastly, create innovative, collaborative partnerships. Loan officers spread the word. Agents seek out those loan officers who are DPA experts and work with them. You've probably got a loan officer for different kinds of buyers and transactions. Make sure you've got a good DPA loan officer partner or 2 lined up for those buyers. As a bonus, join the Down Payment Insiders group that's coming up in just a sec. I did, however, say I would give you millions of reasons to rethink down payment assistance. We have found through a number of different analyses that when it comes to declined loans, an average of 33% of declined mortgage applications were salvageable with a down payment assistance program. That means we put aside mortgage applications declined for property and credit issues, employment history issues. Can't help with that, right? DPA can't help with that. But cash to close and also ratios, down payment assistance programs can directly mitigate those concerns and address those obstacles. And as part of those studies, we found that those DPAs would result in an average of about a 6% reduction in LTV when you use the down payment assistance program for those declined loan applications. That lowers the debt to income ratios. Now, the millions part. We also know that as of it was a few years ago, we did a study and found that about 68 million homes in the US qualify for down payment assistance. Now, that wasn't just for sale listings, that was US inventory. We also know through a couple of other studies that about 32 million renters are mortgage ready, but many think they don't qualify. And why is that? Well, the 20% myth and for other reasons. So there are millions of reasons to rethink down payment assistance. There's a much larger homeownership ready population out there than I think we appreciate. They just need help overcoming that 20% myth and visualizing a path to homeownership. And that's going to be done through you guys on this webinar. Those customers, once they have been served, they will become customers for life. Great source of referral business is a past customer, especially one that you helped with a down payment assistance program. Their peers, their family, they're going to catch wind, they're going to hear the story, and that's going to bring business your way. Now, how can you access information about down payment assistance programs? We just covered a lot, and I'm sure many of you are thinking, okay, well, where do I go to see all these programs in my market and start this journey? Down Payment Insiders. This is a group that we curate on Facebook. Our marketing director is in the background right now working on some Q&A with you guys, but she also curates this group on Facebook, which is over 11,000, mostly real estate agents and loan officers, but also maybe some DPA providers and counselors in there, home ownership counselors. They're interacting with each other, networking. That's one of the biggest things we've been seeing lately is in this group in the Down Payment Insiders group on Facebook, agents are asking for loan officers in their market, and loan officers in their market are responding and saying, yes, I do these programs, let's partner up. There is a ton of that networking happening in this Down Payment Insiders Facebook group. So we encourage you to join the group and network, but also there's a lot of education, there's a lot of best practices, sharing marketing ideas. They're engaging about how to work with first-time home buyers, how to work with DPAs, what are some of the pitfalls that you need to be aware of, what are some of the best practices they've come up with. So listen in, chime in, network, whatever works best for you, but we encourage you to join the Down Payment Insiders group on Facebook and use Down Payment Connect. If you are a member of one of our MLS partners, which is on the very next slide, you have Down Payment Connect for free. That is a landing page unique to you where consumers can come search for down payment help where they want to buy a home and connect to you to continue that conversation. So it is a lead generation tool. You're not buying leads from us. You're using the tool to generate your own leads and supplement your marketing. There's a version for agents. There is a version for loan officers. You all get your DPA search page that consumers can use. You all get marketing tools. Loan officers, you also get a directory of all the programs in your market, as well as those program details. You control which programs display to consumers based on what you can offer at your company. And you have comparison tools and back office tools to help make those matches for consumers. All of that is available at downpaymentresource.com/DPC, as in Down Payment Connect. But if you are a member of one of these MLS partners, you already have Down Payment Connect for free, as well as a full-on integration of our DPA data into the agent and client views in your MLS system. Look for this icon in your MLS. That is an indicator on a listing that that listing is eligible for down payment help. So again, here's the list of MLSs. Just real quick: Houston, Jacksonville, Florida, California Regional, Birmingham, Spokane, Indianapolis, Austin, Texas, Seattle, Richmond, Virginia, Detroit, One Key up in New York, up the Hudson Valley and the boroughs, Lansing, Atlanta, or FMLS more broadly, North Star in the Twin Cities, MLS Penn in Massachusetts, Stellar in Central Florida, and San Antonio. If you are a member of one of those MLSs, you have a full DPR integration and Down Payment Connect for free. I do see a question about Bright MLS. Kenton, we would love an introduction and to pursue that conversation, but they are not yet a partner. Lenders, we have a suite of enterprise lender tools. I won't get into too much detail on this. If you're a loan officer, we have Down Payment Connect. It's sort of a compilation of some of these tools. But agents, just so you know, we're doing a lot of work in the mortgage world to help lenders do DPA better as well, to help create more of those loan officer partners for you. So I'll leave it at that. And we've got Mel, Veronica, and Keith in the background. I'm going to put our contact information up here and see if Mel, Keith, and Veronica have any questions from Q&A or from chat that they want to address.
Hey, Sean. Yeah. First of all, thank you, everybody that joined us today. We've had some great conversation going on in chat and in Q&A. Just want to make sure everyone knows, because we always get this question a lot, we did record today's session, and we'll be sending out that recording along with the slides and some other helpful information to you guys, everyone that registered tomorrow. So you will receive that. And Sean, something unfortunately that popped up a lot for me today, and I'll let Veronica and Keith chime in as well, but we did have several people, and I know that you addressed this a little bit during the presentation, but we did have several people that says, that they've closed DPA a few times. However, most recently, they've had loan officers discouraging DPA. So I just think that's an important topic. I know it's something we're all kind of passionate about. So I didn't know if you wanted to
Yeah,
tackle
I
that one
want to
again.
want to address that. That's not the loan officer partner for you. I mean, look, they might be great at helping other kinds of clients, but if you're working with a client that needs or qualifies for or is going to use down payment assistance, I would think you as an agent would want a loan officer that supports that initiative, that supports that kind of product, um, and will thus support that borrower. So, Jennifer, thank you. I see Jennifer in the chat. Look, that's the attitude that you're looking for. Jennifer just chatted or just put a post, send them my way. I'll help DPA buyers find programs. Yeah, look, that's the kind of loan officer you're looking for. I promise you they're out there. They're all over the place. And there are certainly plenty of loan officers that don't like down payment assistance. And that's their choice, right? But that means that channel of business is probably lost to them because they're not out there pursuing relationships with you for those clients that you have that need that help. So, sorry to hear, but look, there are loan officers out there that don't want to do jumbo loans. They don't want to do down payment assistance. They don't want to do FHA. They don't want to do whatever, right? Everybody's got their preferences. You just need to look for a loan officer that does want that business. So, and now I'm seeing everybody chime in the chat. That's great. I would take that to Down Payment Insiders and go ask on Down Payment Insiders on Facebook, hey, who's in my market that does this stuff, that knows these programs, that wants my business? I've got the buyers. I need your support. We need a partnership. And I'll recap how to find loan officers. So let's go through that one more time. Contact the DPA provider. They know who the LOs are that are submitting loans to them. The state agencies, your state housing finance agencies, most of them are publishing a list of top producers. Start with that list. Those are the folks that are doing a ton of volume. They know their stuff. They know these programs, and they obviously want to do that business. Talk to your existing LO partners. They may offer these programs and it hasn't come up. If it hasn't come up, maybe it's because they don't offer them, or as the question implied, maybe they've kind of got a sour attitude. That's fine. Maybe they're great for a different kind of business, but for DPA loans, maybe you need a different partner. Ask your broker, ask your fellow realtors. Do you have a loan officer you work with that is really good at down payment assistance? I'd like to meet them. Down Payment Insiders, I'll go back to that. Join the Down Payment Insiders group on Facebook. Tons of networking is happening there. So I'm seeing these questions in chat. Guys, we're not able to save the chat log. So grab what you need out of that. But go to Down Payment Insiders on Facebook, because what I'm seeing in chat now, that's what's happening there. Agents all over the country and loan officers who do DPA all over the country are connecting, striking partnerships, and generating business because they've got this platform here at Down Payment Insiders in which to do that. So what else, Mel? Any other questions or themes we need to address?
I didn't have any other trends. I'm not sure what Veronica, because we were all furiously answering questions. So I don't know if Veronica and Keith saw anything or anything stood out to them, but that was a big one for me.
Yeah, Veronica, Keith, anything you guys want to pull out from Q&A or chat?
Yeah, hi Sean. One of the things that I've been seeing is questions in regards to not only loan officers for certain states, but programs for certain states. I've seen New York, Florida, and a few other states listed as far as what programs are out there. And just thought I would point out again, if you're not part of one of our MLS partners or lending partners that have access to our tools, anyone can go to downpaymentresource.com and do a search to locate programs that are available in those locations.
Yeah, and for those of you that are members of one of our MLS partners, any listing in your MLS that is eligible for down payment help is flagged as such with this button. It's gonna have a $ and a check mark. That's the down payment resource icon inside of MLSs. Now, I know some of you are on, Matrix or Paragon or Flex MLS. So it's going to be in different places throughout different MLS systems, but all of these MLSs here have fully integrated down payment resource into agent. In Matrix, it's going to be agent single line and list views, as well as client views, one home, or most of you are on one home now. In Paragon, it's going to be on the list view, and I think the plug icon, you click that and open up additional resources. If you're on Flex, it's going to be in the listing detail view, kind of above the pictures where you have that row with all the third-party icons. So hopefully that helps. But there's also a link to your down payment resource dashboard on your MLS dashboard. There'll be a link to down payment resource there. That's where you go get Down Payment Connect for free. If you have any questions about any of that, just reach out to us at info@downpaymentresource.com. Keith, anything you wanted to pull out of Q&A or chat?
Nothing here, Sean.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
guys.
Well, I think we'll wrap with that. Thank you guys in the background for answering all the questions. Thank you to everybody that joined us today. If you have any further questions, reach out to us at info@downpaymentresource.com. And if you agree or disagree or have alternative ideas about some of the content you heard, I'd love to hear from you, because we try to keep this fresh and current. But you guys are the agents and loan officers that are out there dealing with these. So thank you all. Have a great day. We'll talk to you on our next webinar.